Okay, let's get this one started. Look like Steven Pasqua and user 807. I'm going to be asking a question. How is it, or is it even possible? Is it an oxymoron? Is it a hypocrisy to be pro life and pro death penalty? How does that work? And as folks filter in, that's the question we're asking. How can you be both in favor of taking a life in regards to someone committing a crime, but in favor of mandating support for life in regards to the unborn? The question we have to look at is, are you in favor of saving a life or not? So that's what we're going to ask. And as folks come in here, I just want to get your response to this, because to me, your humble correspondent, yours truly, that doesn't make any sense. How can you be in favor of the death penalty and pro-life legislation in the same sentence? I don't understand the logic of it, but maybe it's just me and my ignorance. That is why I'm here to talk to you folks. The box is open. Let me go straight to the box. Paul Harvey, maybe Paul Harvey can explain it. That's what welcome to the program, folks, and I wait on that and listen. Good evening, or good afternoon. Yeah, good evening, Paul Harvey.
What's up, man?
Hey, what's up? You get what I'm asking, the question that I'm asking?
Yeah, but, I mean, it's pretty simple. We're talking about a literal innocent life as opposed to a criminal who obviously committed a death penalty crime and chose to do that.
Okay, but
So
let me.
the innocent life is just that, and the other person's just not.
But who gets to decide if the person, the person that's being
The
taken by the
state.
state, for instance, who gets to decide if they're not an innocent life?
What do you are you talking about? The person that's a criminal that committed murder or whatever it is, or
Yeah,
are you
the
talking
person that.
about
Okay, so in other words, because you do
why
understand it,
they're
you do
literally not
understand that.
innocent?
Well, but you do understand that throughout our history and in countries all over the world, anything could make you become a criminal and they decide to take your life. Who gets to decide in regards to what makes a person criminal enough to take a life created by God?
Well, the states evidently, just like abortion, the states can come up with their own way of doing things in this country. I don't
So
know
let
what's
me.
going on in other countries. I don't care about them.
Okay, but we'll stick to the United States. So that's a fair point. Here's the argument. Here's where I'm confused. If a mother decides that that life inside of her is going to be a burden for her and she wants to abort it, we don't agree with that. But if the state also decides that a person has done something and they are a burden to society, it's okay with the state taking a life. What I'm questioning is, how do we? Why is one entity okay with taking a life and the other one is not?
Okay, well, that doesn't make the child any less innocent, though, than the criminal. And if you commit a murder, I guess you're taking your life into your own hands. Maybe you should check the state and make sure if you're going to murder somebody that they don't carry the death penalty or whatever it is. However,
Right.
again, the innocent person is the innocent thing in this entity. The innocent entity here is the child. So if you commit a murder, somebody murders somebody that I love, and we have the death penalty. Well, they committed the death penalty to my loved one, so they
Okay.
deserve the death penalty. I think they should. If you murder somebody, first degree murder, yeah, you should go to the chair. If more than three people see it in Texas, evidently, if more than three people see you do what you did, you get an express lane to the electric
So
chair.
if we, what
But
if we have, what if we have a U.S. soldier that killed three people overseas? Should he face death because he killed three people?
what was the reason he killed him?
And that's the point I'm trying to make, is that you're taking the decision on terminating a life from God, and you're letting man decide when to kill and when you think it's okay. In every case we're talking about, whether it's a military, whether it's a criminal, or whether it's a woman committing an abortion, in every case it is man deciding when to kill somebody, and you deciding when that is okay. Where does God come into this equation?
Well, I mean, I'm not really concerned about what God believes. When God comes down here and saves the world, then He can tell me how to live. But until such time as God comes down here and saves me and pays my bills and the rest of it, And
So
fixes
you,
all the world's problems.
so,
I got nothing. I ain't got nothing for
so do you,
them.
so do you believe in God?
I believe in. I'm more of a deist than somebody that thinks that every hair on their head's counted and what have you. I did my time in the realm of church and whatnot. When I was in the orphanage, it was run by Catholic nuns. It's
Okay.
my white privilege to be in the orphanage too. I loved it.
All right.
I'm just man.
And by
I'm
the way,
just
somebody, and by the way, someone in the comments, who was that? Looks like Poop Master. I love the name. I always like creative names. Poop Master said, "It says an eye for an eye, dude." Well, "Thou shalt not kill" is also in there. So once again,
no,
you're picking and choosing. Go
thou
ahead.
shalt not do murder. Thou shalt not do murder is what that commandment is. It's not
Well,
thou shalt not kill.
if you are alive and your life is taken, that is murder. Period. If when you take the life
There
of a
you go.
criminal, hold on a second. When a life of a criminal, when somebody is executed, there is a death certificate filled out, and they have on their cause of death is homicide. It is murder.
Yeah, and
Hey,
so is abortion.
exactly. So why is one okay and the other one wrong?
Because one's innocent and the other one's not.
But who gets to
What's the
decide that?
matter? You think so? An unborn baby is not innocent in any way, and the other guy is definitely not innocent because he's in jail. He's going to the electric chair. However, people however the state murders people. And look, if you murder, but the innocent baby has not murdered anybody, hasn't done anything to anybody. It's just sitting there waiting to come out and freaking have a happy life.
I
But
get
it
what
all comes.
I get
Go
what
ahead.
you're saying. Do you believe everything happens for a reason?
I'm not really quite there. Uh, I don't know if there's a reason for everything, but I suppose somebody had a reason to do whatever it is they did.
Okay.
I just don't. I don't subscribe to that. I mean, my wife and I meeting, I think that was definitely destiny, but I don't think that everything happened for a reason.
Okay. Well, the point I'm just simply making is that we're picking and choosing when we allow man to take a life. If you think the person is guilty, then it's okay to take their life. If you think the person is innocent, then their life should be spared. But at the end of the day, it is you, a man, making that decision. And there's no denying that men are often flawed.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, some people get wrongly accused and all this other stuff. But we can go back to the abortion argument where it's supposed to be safe, rare, and legal to abortion on demand, killing babies 28 days out, and what have you. I still got to finish my video on me having my baby. I got one last video. I went ahead and did a whole bunch of videos on it about me having a baby and all that, just to satire,
Oh,
satire, of
you're
course.
going after the transgender crowd, I take it.
Well, no, actually, my nephew's trans, as well, and we take foster kids, and there's trans foster kids and what have you. And my wife and I are, I would say, I guess we're part of the alphabet community.
Okay. The alphabet
So
community. You're not going after the
we're
trans.
in the LS, baby. We're in the LS.
All right, I got to move it on, man. I got to move
All
it on.
right, man. Move on that note. All right, man.
Hey, you
I
have a
ain't
good
scared of no
holiday.
trans. I don't have no phobias. I don't have a rational fear of anything. See you,
No,
bro. All
no Americans do. You have a wonderful holiday. Look forward to talking
right,
to you.
bro. You too.
All right. Okay, let me. I'm doing a walk and talk. Can I make my dogs trans or my cats? Wouldn't that be up to your dog or your cat to let you know that? Where's this going? Where's the crickets? The crickets are coming. Let me move it on to devil dog for life. Okay, the question I'm asking is, when is it okay to take a life? If it's at the hands of man? That's the question we ask. The devil dog, good afternoon.
What's up, buddy?
None at all. Do you see any hypocrisy or am I getting it wrong?
I just hopped on a few seconds ago. What
Let
were
me
you
let me
guys?
give it to you. Let me give it to you. You can decide based on what the topic is.
Yep.
I'm talking about the notion of being pro-life and in favor of capital punishment. And the way I am putting this,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm willing to claim ignorance. If you guys think I don't know what the hell I'm talking about,
No.
that's why we're here talking. But the
Mm-hmm.
question I'm asking is, how can you suggest that it's wrong to take a life, but then believe in capital punishment? Because all life supposedly was created by God. So how is it right in one case to take the life of one of God's children, and in any other case it's not?
I can see your point about the hypocrisy. um, that is like, that's a teeter-totter with me.
Let me ask you this: do you believe in God?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay, so you believe that, like for instance, if somebody gets cancer and dies, you believe it was their time to go and God was calling them home. Is that the way you would believe that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if a guy goes out and commits murder, we've already agreed that when it's a person's time to go, God will take them home. Why not
Sure.
wait for God for take them home? As a lot of folks believe, like, let me ask you this: do you believe that when God, everything happens for a reason under God?
Absolutely. I'm a firm believer everything happens for a reason.
So the question I would ask is, if a guy kills someone, how do we know that God did not anoint that person to commit that act to save the victim from doing something that may have been even worse to our country or to our people or to humans?
Damn. Why you gotta come at me like this? Because you always have a rational thought.
I'm asking this because I talk to the pro-life crowd all the time, and they suggest that they have the high ground. So I have to ask this.
You are always having a rational thought. You always trip me up. But I will say I see your point. You know, where I guess if you're taking a life because of an abortion, you're taking a life, and if somebody is on death row, you're still taking a life. I understand that, but man, I can't really answer that question, sir.
Yeah, and that's why I'm trying to find out. Like I said, I'm willing to admit ignorance to my audience that thinks I may be. But the point I'm trying to, and by the way, folks, tap the screen. Hundreds of us in here. Get your boy up to 5,000 likes. Bring me some more evangelicals. That's who the hell I want to talk to. But the point I'm trying to make is that if you, this is for my audience that believes in God. This is obviously not an atheist question. But if you believe God does everything for a reason, then wouldn't it be up to God's duty to take that person out if they are truly a danger to society?
See, the way I look at it is, yeah, I mean, God forgives everyone, right?
Right.
But he also, he also didn't believe in evil. So,
well,
man,
God himself, if you read the Bible, it's loaded with acts of evil, from people bursting into flames, turning into piles of salt. Yeah, he's committed all sorts of acts of evil.
Mm-hmm. Man, I believe in the death penalty, but now, like, I'm not gonna sound like a hypocrite, so I can't really. you just took the words out of my mouth, man.
That's the only question I'm asking the audience, because let's be honest. Let's take rape and incest out of it. That's not why most women have an abortion. Most women have an abortion because they believe that unborn child is going to be a burden to them. They don't want that child for reasons that they believe is going to be a burden to them. Now, I understand on the right, you guys think that's blasphemy or that's a huge sin. Well, that is the exact reason why we execute people, is because we believe they're going to be a burden to society. You're doing the exact same thing as the mothers are doing. You're just saying my reason is legit and her reason is not.
See, I am, okay, when it comes to me personally, I am pro-life. Right? Okay. But as a whole, I'm pro-choice because I don't think anyone in the government should dictate anything. The government should stay out of our lives.
But then you should be pro-life in regards to the death penalty as well, then, because the government is the one that's taking the lives. And
true.
Let me add on to this. Not only is the government taking lives, but for those who are out there who are watching this that are suggesting that an abortion is taking the life of an innocent, ask yourself, how many innocent lives do you believe that U.S. government, these various states have taken and suggested that that person deserved to die? they take innocent lives too.
Oh, absolutely. You know, and you know, um, I can speak kind of on the death penalty aspect because my ex-wife unalived somebody, and the state was pushing for the death penalty, and but the family requested the state not to. So the state, you know, told the state said no. Okay, we'll honor your wishes. So, but when when they were looking to give her the death penalty, I was like, you know what? You reap what you sow. That was my thoughts. But then I got to thinking about it. I got to thinking about it,
Okay.
and you know, I really thought about it, and I'm like, you know what? No, because then no matter what she did. You know, she's the mother of my children, and my children should be able to have a relationship with their mother. So that's where I was coming from. I'm glad that they didn't push the death penalty.
You're coming at it from a compassionate angle for the children, but I mean, just period. Even you would admit, even as a supporter of capital punishment, even yourself and virtually everyone else that supports capital punishment would admit that our nation makes mistakes. Our justice system is biased and it makes mistakes.
Oh, do I agree that there's a lot of people on death row right now that shouldn't be? Absolutely, 100%.
Why support it? If you know that they're potentially killing innocent people, and you're for the protection of innocent life, why support it?
I guess my thing is because
Take your time. Take your time.
we're feeding and housing these people. Now, if a person, you know, appeals and gets off, you know, gets a stay and says no death penalty, we're going to do life without parole, sure. But if you've ran out all your appeals and it's, you know, written in stone that you committed the crime, then I guess that's where I'm coming from.
Well, let me make it clear, and this is also to my MAGA audience. It is never written in stone. Generally, occasionally you get the murder on videotape, but most folks that get convicted of murder, it's not on videotape. And when I said not written in stone, I brought that up because there are far more people who have been convicted and even put to death with less evidence than they're presenting against Trump right now.
I agree. I agree with you. I am not disagreeing with you at all. I am not disagreeing with you at all.
Which leads to
I agree.
And I got to part ways with you, but I'll give you the last word. But that does lead to my previous question is, if we realize our system is so flawed, why do we continue supporting that? You know you're costing innocent lives eventually by doing that.
Once again, I appreciate you, brother. You put my foot in my mouth again. But you always have a rational thought, and I might rethink this whole death penalty thing now. Be honest with you, I might.
I would be honored if you would do that. I'm just simply saying, if you're for protecting or saving innocent lives, and you know that the U.S. justice system is potentially taking the lives of innocents, but you continue supporting it, you might as well be a mom aborting kids.
Right. So, no, I appreciate you, man. You know, I always appreciate you when I talk to you. So,
always a pleasure.
You always have a great perspective, and wow.
Okay, always a pleasure.
Insert foot into mouth. Have a good one, bro.
Enjoy your holiday. If we don't talk before, enjoy your holiday.
You too, bud. You too, man.
All right. So, folks, that is what we're talking about here. And that was a good call. Let me move it on to the box. The box has been fairly jumping, so I'm going to go straight up. Well, I just lost that last guest that was in the box. But that is the question I'm asking, is that how can you be pro-death penalty with our system and all its flaws? I mean, certainly when it comes to folks that look like yours truly, your humble correspondent, African Americans, how many African Americans have been completely exonerated? I'm not talking about filed an appeal and had their death sentence downgraded to life in prison or something of that nature. I'm talking about completely exonerated, sitting on death row, and it turns out they were 100% innocent. All I would ask you to do is look up the Innocence Project. If you know our system is flawed, you know that they are literally processing innocent people to the gallows or the electric chair or the lethal injection table. How can you support that and call yourself pro-life? Okay, I'm a smartass. I'm a smartass. We're going to the box. Good evening or good afternoon. I'm a smartass. What's up, man?
Hey, how you doing today? What happened? Yesterday it was all like sunny skies and pretty, and now it looks like gloom and doom.
But you know something, for a guy like myself with sensitive skin, it's great. I don't have to get worried about getting burned.
So you made the talker. You know what you're talking about today.
Okay.
About right now.
You're breaking up or one way or another.
Yeah,
Can you
somebody
hear
just
me?
tried calling. I can
Okay.
hear you. Somebody calling in. I had to ignore the call, but you know it's on the surface without splitting hairs and taking it to a case by case standpoint. If you leave it on the surface, abortion is the taking of an innocent life. The
Okay.
death penalty is the taking of a life that's guilty. And like with the TikTok you made earlier, I commented on there, abortion is the death of something that is pure and innocent, as opposed to the death penalty is the death of something that is not pure and innocent.
But who gets to
So,
decide what is pure and innocent?
well, I mean, it's pretty simple. What did a fetus in the womb do to be guilty? I mean, if we're going to break it down, we have the question that's asked, what did the fetus do to what did the person on death row do? And
Well,
then
but
the answer to
yeah, but if you want to go into the argument that the condemned on death row is not pure and innocent, what human being is not pure and innocent? Do you eat meat? I mean, we all kill things. So, what human being would qualify as not being pure and innocent? How many veterans we got out there that would not qualify as being pure and innocent? You would literally kill almost every human on earth. Most of us have killed something that was alive in our lifetime.
right, but to break it down from a law, from what's law
Well,
is that
yeah, but
you know
I get your point on the law, but keep in mind the law has included women can't vote, slavery, and all kind. The law is flawed from its very core. So
oh,
if that's the only judgment is man and law, then we would have to admit that that's flawed all over the place.
that's and it very much is. I mean, it's just like the big deal going on right now with RV Wade. It's there's flawed systems that could possibly make women on a whole not so apt to want to look at as abortion as an option because there's flawed support programs that are in place between abortion, help centers, child care, and I mean the list goes on and on and on of systems that are out that could help a single mom, a single dad, take care of a child where it's not such a financial burden or emotional burden. I mean, shit, even our mental health.
And,
Because
and
we all,
I'll let you continue, but I want to respond to Tony DeGonia in the comments. He suggested that killing an animal to eat is not a sin. We have to eat, and God says all animals are clean to eat. You really think that the only time mankind kills animals is to eat? You kill them for capitalism, whether it's their fur, their ivory. You kill them for pest control. How many folks kill squirrels and things like that for eating at their deck or maybe climbing on the porch? I mean, so yeah, humans are killing animals like freaking crazy. There are animals that have went extinct, and it was not because humans were hungry. If you want to really believe in God, he put enough animals on earth that we could kill them and nothing should ever have went extinct. So the fact that there are so many animals that are extinct should show you we're doing a hell of a lot more than just killing to eat. But go ahead, Smartass.
Oh, see, but either way, but and then like, for pregnant, for pregnant women, postpartum, that's a big deal as well, and our mental health system is flawed. So again, at the same time, and I mean, mind you, I'm pro-life, and I'm a conservative, but again, I'll always throw in there that I'm a realist as well. My personal belief system and what has my way of everyday life and what I'm rooted in is different than you and I and shit all you're listening and everybody listening in here. We're not going to be 100% matched, but like I've said, I'm real enough to understand that with those differences we have to find a happy middle ground.
Well, but
you
we're
know
not. We're suggesting that our way. This is what the pro-life crowd is suggesting. Our reasons to kill are legit, and your reasons to kill are illegit. That's what they're telling the mothers to be. Is that your reasons for why you're killing are not only illegitimate, they're criminal. But our reasons for killing are, they're legitimate and they're, for in favor of mankind.
right? And those are the very staunch pro. Like I popped in a live last night that was pro-life, and I had to walk out of the live because I wanted to jump through the phone. And I'm not even. I can hop into pro-choice lives that where I'm the only dude talking, and I can
Yeah.
hang an hour and a half. This pro-life one that I popped in last night, I swear, if I could have jumped through the phone and had the person on the other end, your teeth.
Elaborate. Give me a point that we're making that really makes you just want to defecate.
They were making the point that like for like the argument that we've had of that I've put on here where I'm the one me as a pro-lifer, I'm willing to give exceptions. The exception was essay and incest, and great, those are my ones. Well,
Okay.
this pro-lifer came back and said, well, essay shouldn't be, and I'm like, why? The child was conceived under a non-consensual standpoint,
Hmm.
and he goes,
Well,
okay.
I'll jump in. I'll let you continue. But if you truly believe in God and you believe everything happens for a reason, there is a Republican on record as saying that that child should not be terminated because God meant for that rape to happen. There are people who believe that, and it sounds like that's what you were talking to. But go ahead.
Yeah, and that's where it was. But again, I'm a pro-lifer with exceptions because I'm a realist at the same time too, and there has to be a happy medium made. You can't keep the start if the reason why we're at the problems we're at is because both sides are so staunch on their belief systems that they don't want to give up an inch to find a happy medium to where you're not going to please everybody on your side, but you're definitely not going to put but with not pleasing everybody on your side, you're going to please people on the other side to keep things amicable between the two differing parties. And that's like and that's just like, like I said, that's kind of where we're at with it now. But the thing that made me want to jump through the phone is he was saying for SA, for SA victims, that that with it being conceived and then being forced to go to birth, by me having exceptions, that's like saying, the woman after the child's a year old, if she just woke up one morning and said, fuck that kid, she could kill him because,
Yeah,
you know,
nobody. That's the far right argument. Aborting
yeah.
live. I don't even entertain it. Let me ask you this question. This is coming in the comments. This is coming from my name is Robert. He said, if you want to change these kind of laws, you have to do it from a state level, community level, not federal. Do you agree with that?
100% agree with that. And the reason why I say it is like, what was it, 3, 4 lives ago when I jumped in? The question that hasn't been able to that's been answered is what has the Supreme Court or courts on a federal level ruled where life begins? Where does life begin?
Okay. And
Okay?
that's a good point. But here's why I disagree with that. Is because I look at our current history in this country, and I will tell you, if Martin Luther King tried to get racism changed on a state level, on a community level, he would have died sooner. The only reason he was able to accomplish what he accomplished is because he got President Kennedy and later Lyndon B. Johnson to change those laws. Alabama was not going to allow that to change on the state level. It was just, and certainly not on the community level. You're not going to go into some of these really racist towns and get them to change that on the community level. I don't think it would ever happen.
Yeah, but on the flip of that, we have Malcolm X, which was on the opposite end of the spectrum of MLK.
Yeah, but he's not known to get anything accomplished. He's not known for having civil rights legislation passed. Martin Luther King is.
Okay, but the reason why, you know, and this is just documentaries that I've seen because I'm a white guy. You know, I am the what America would say the stereotypical racist. I'm a pro-life white conservative male. So with all that across the board, I'm racist. You know, that's just what that's what seems to be the standard. But
All
with
right.
But with looking into things, you know, with looking into the historical things behind that, Malcolm X came out as we'll just say for sake of argument, he came out on the far left of things at the same time of MLK being on the far right of things. And then
Okay.
with what I've read and you know research I've done, I saw that you know that I saw that when Malcolm X like quote unquote started to see the light and was starting to lean more to support MLK, the very party that he was supporting assassinated him. So he never had a chance. All we ever remember of Malcolm X or what's shown historically, unless you dig in, is
He
that he
had
was
Well, see, here's where I disagree. He had a chance. It was the way he was running with his movement. Malcolm X originally started off by saying, do it by any means necessary. Malcolm X was promoting change through violence, just like you guys talk about fighting tyranny through my cold dead hands. That was Malcolm X's method. Had he joined the Jesse Jacksons, the Al Sharptons, and did things the way Martin Luther King did it, he might still be alive and he may have at least a reputation of Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton, who are living civil rights leaders that got things accomplished. There really is no major accomplishments that are attributed to Malcolm X. And that's coming from white guys. I'm not a white guy, obviously, but if you listen to what the white guys say in this country, they don't credit Malcolm X for any significant change. It's all Martin Luther King.
all right. And see, what I have read in history books and different, you know, in different articles pertaining to Malcolm X is when he was starting to transition, when he was in the transition to more align himself with MLK, is when he got assassinated. So he never had the opportunity once he was, you know, reformed himself to change his preconceived persona. So he got taken out while everybody still had the persona of, well, he's on this end of taking it by violence and so on and so forth. So, I mean, but that's what I've read historically. Whether what happened is, well, I'm not old enough to actually, you know, recall, well, no, I seen on the TV that Malcolm X was doing this while MLK was doing that. This is all things I've read.
Well, I'm just simply saying at the end of the day, regardless of who, because we really don't clearly know who took Malcolm X out. It's all rumors. But
Right.
whoever took Malcolm X out, chances are it probably has something to do with people believing that he was going to do it by violence. Maybe he came around, like you're saying, but maybe it was also too late. Whereas Sharpton and Jackson, they always agreed with Martin Luther King's way. And let me just say it this way. I don't think with African Americans, with the amount of hatred that there was towards African Americans in this country during that time, and our low minority in this country, low intelligence level, low power level, I don't think we would have ever accomplished anything of significance through violence. We'd have just got wiped out. So that's what Malcolm X original method was, is to try to accomplish it through violence. A good example would be Black Wall Street in Tulsa. When they took over that town, those folks used firearms and fought back. They just wiped them out.
So it's I don't well, where we went. How do we get kind of walking off on that? We start off we
We'll,
go
we'll,
all
let's go back to where we were. We'll go back to the original thread, and that
oh
is the system is flawed. So anyone that supports pro-life, how can you do that knowing that the system routinely arrests, convicts, and even probably executes innocent people? How could you support that system and call yourself pro-life?
because I haven't seen. Well, it's I would have to do more research and get back to you on this, but with the little bit that I've done, it's a lot of those reforms that have targeted the people of color community. All those laws have been passed by, well, the guy that's sitting at the steering wheel right now. I mean, he's put reforms in to target,
But what are you suggesting that? Are you suggesting that the system now is fair?
oh no, system's not fair at all. What I'm saying is
So
the
if you're
ability.
so if you're
It,
admitting the system is not fair, how would you support the death penalty?
to put reform into the system with laws. I mean, it's
But
very well known
reform
that the
is,
system
yeah, but the
laws.
reform is not there yet. You're supporting the death penalty before the reform is even there.
So okay, but you have to stick to your belief system. Okay, I mean, there's the conversations you and I have, the conversations that you have with the numerous people that you have in here, the comments you read, and everything else. At the end of the day, you might take things into consideration, but it is not going to change your belief system. And because your belief system doesn't get changed, the fact that you can acknowledge that there are things that are flawed will give
Yeah,
you the ability to find a
yeah. No,
solution.
and let me make it clear. I'm by no means trying to change anyone in here's belief system. I'm trying to expose my curious mind to understand it. And what I'm trying to understand right now is that if you are religious, you believe in the protection of life, particularly innocent life, and you would acknowledge that our system harms innocent lives. I'm talking about our judicial system. If you would admit that our judicial system harms innocent lives, how could you be in favor of the death penalty?
Because an innocent life was taken for that person to get put on the death penalty or to
Yeah,
get
but
did.
that's the point I'm trying to make is a lot of the folks that are on the death penalty did not take a life at all. You're going to end up killing the wrong person.
Well, and that's where the reform needs to come in. Do I now my belief system says eye for an eye. If you take an innocent life, your life deserves to be taken, but that's my belief system based off of that. So with that, if a person is found beyond a reasonable doubt that he murdered another human being out of cold blood and whatnot, and it was an innocent person, I mean, even if an innocent person that didn't ask for it, and they were found guilty, well, it's eye for an eye. What is a
So,
child?
so let me put it this way. So if a jury finds Trump guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, you will accept that decision.
I won't agree with it, but I'll accept it because his peers, it's the way the legal system is. It's judged by his peers. So his peers say beyond a reasonable doubt that Trump is guilty of whatever the witch hunt they're after. But I don't have to agree with it. But the way the judicial system works,
All right.
hey,
Well, at the end
it's
of the day, let's be clear. Trump is in no danger of being executed. But I got to
oh,
move it on. The box is full, man. You know how it works.
right. Hey, you enjoy your walk, and I'll sit in here for a little while longer and see what other folks got to say.
All good. And enjoy your holiday if we don't get to talk before.
All righty. You have a good night.
Okay, let me go to the box. I don't get it. I'm gonna go to Mark time next. I see Rainey in there, but I don't get it. And the reason I'm saying this is that every caller is admitting our system is flawed. You admit our system harms innocent people, but at the same time, you support our system in regards to taking innocent lives. Now, my last caller was suggesting we need reform. I agree with him 100%. But until the reform is actually in place, how could you consciously support the death penalty? Because you would have to admit, yeah, I'm probably causing some people to lose their lives that does not deserve to die, which is no different than the abortion argument. Mark time. Let me move it on. Get your boy to 10,000 likes, folks. Tap the screen. I'm out here walking and talking. Mark time. Good evening.
What's up, man? How we doing?
I take it you've been listening in.
Oh yeah, you know how I do.
I'm always here. Okay, tell me where I'm getting it wrong.
I don't think you're getting it wrong. I did want to chime in real quick on Malcolm X and what I think is kind of the beauty of his approach to things, which is and kind of similar to how I think it's a good mirror to hold up to. So like if you think of like the Black Panther Party in California, the Malcolm X did nothing but give conservatives a taste of their own medicine, in that they're not super concerned about assault rifles on the streets until it's a crowd of 100 black men walking down the street with assault rifles and exercising their Second Amendment rights. And then guess what? Governor Reagan did to the gun laws in California is he tightened them mofos up pretty quick. So
Let me ask, that's a good point you're making. Let me ask you this, and this got a lot of flack. Joy Behar on The View, and I understand my audience is no friend of Joy Behar. That's fine. But she recently said a few days ago after the killing in Uvalde that if we wanted to get gun laws changed, that African Americans should all start buying guns. Her take is that if all African Americans become armed, they'll change the gun laws. Now, that's in 2022. Would you agree with that, or you think there's some validity to that?
I definitely think there's some validity to that. And like I said, it's just holding a mirror up to what other people are saying. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like black people. I just think it has to be like someone that kind of, I think it just is.
Yeah, people that they oppose, in other words.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Like, and what the reason I think this like Civil War talk is so popular on the right is because one, that's the only way they're going to get their message across, because their ideology, like by definition, is dying, and so I think they see it as a matter of desperation, and violence is justified because it's the only language that they understand. So. And it was connected to the Joy Behar thing, but I lost it. This is why I write stuff down.
Well, I'm always happy to have you on here. So let me ask you: do you support capital punishment?
I do not. I think, like, especially with the Oklahoma case that was pretty recent, where this guy was convicted for murder and was sentenced to the death penalty. Like, not even, I don't know, a couple months ago. I can look it up here in a second. But he like had very credible evidence that it wasn't him, but he was still, because he was in Oklahoma, sentenced to the death penalty. And it took like a massive campaign to even get the right-wing governor to like stall it for a little bit, and then more credible evidence to come out to like prevent him from being murdered. Like
here's the point I was trying to make to one of my callers, a few callers back. He was suggesting, well, if they know you're guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, and I was telling him the average condemned individual is not caught on videotape. Oftentimes it's witness testimony, the testimony from snitches with things to gain. Sometimes, unfortunately, it's crooked cops and things like that. We know our system is flawed. So if you are for protecting the life of the innocent, how the hell could you support the death penalty? That's what I'm asking, folks. And
yeah, it's
like they don't get it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just ignorant on this. I don't know.
No, and I think that kind of goes back to like the idea of hypocrisy, right? And I think that is a conversation that the left has with each other about like, look at this amazing hypocritical thing that the right did. And that's kind of why I've been encouraging creators, like especially left-wing creators, to use the F word, fascist, to describe certain things that happen, because they do not care about hypocrisy. Like there's two things that are true: is that what is it? Okay for me, but not for thee, and that you cannot tell them what to do. You cannot tell them what to do. But
do as I say, not as I do.
Yes, exactly. And so I think like when we want to be like, look how hypocritical this is, that you call yourself pro-life, but you own 40 guns and are okay with capital punishment and don't help the kid after they're born and don't believe in universal health care and this, that, and the other thing. Like it just bounces off. Like that does not resonate. It does no good to highlight hypocrisy on the right, because that's just not the language they speak.
Yeah. So. Well, I really enjoy talking to the right. I like to hear opposing opinions, but oftentimes it can be like that. Like, for instance, I was having a live last night and I was suggesting that with President Trump, that it does not matter if he done something wrong or not. The position we're in, at least from the right, is that you're not going to believe anybody who gives you the news anyway. So,
Right.
I
Exactly.
mean, yeah, I mean, and I know a lot of my audience thinks that Trump is 100% innocent. I'm not here to argue
Sure.
that. My
Sure. No.
argument is if he was guilty, just entertaining that for shits and giggles, if he was guilty of something, anything,
Yeah.
who could tell you? You don't trust the FBI, you don't trust the CIA, you don't trust the intelligence agencies. Those are the people who would have access to what he did wrong and actually give you the news. So if you don't trust any of those people, he's in a position where if he did something wrong, he doesn't have to worry about you suggesting that he should be held accountable because you're not going to believe the information. So that's what
Exactly.
I
But that's the whole idea behind fake news. That is it's a discreditation campaign, and that's why I'm encouraging people to use the F word, is because part of that is to delegitimize the press, delegitimize your opponent, slander their name, so that like if any criticism that comes your way, you can say, oh, the liberal mob is coming for me, and that's again the F word. Power for power's sake. You never apologize. You never admit anything. You just move on. And you just, Steve Bannon, his old advisor, the one that did the GoFundMe for the wall and then robbed all of Trump's supporters of all their money. His whole shtick, his approach was, we are not fighting the Democrats. We are fighting the media. And the way you fight the media is, okay if I curse, is to flood the zone with shit. That was Steve Bannon's strategy. It was flood the zone with shit. And so it's like controversy, controversy, controversy. Say this crazy thing. Say this crazy thing. The news, people get exhausted of it. That's why people are they're just wrung out from politics.
Well, I want to say this in regards to one of the comments, somebody in the comments, Harm Money. I love the name. He said, proof beyond a reasonable doubt. There has to be proof to get the DP. Well, the problem with
I don't believe the proof.
Well, not only not believing the proof, but when you're talking about somebody in the upper echelon of politics, the proof is going to be significantly more difficult to get. You're not going to just be Trump, for instance. I mean, or Biden or whoever. They're not going to just be walking around on video camera everywhere committing crime. You can get it. They have access to whoever has the video, for instance, where they can take that. So you have to go with a lot of eyewitness testimony and sworn witnesses. But in this case, you're not going to trust any of those people. So I don't know if he ever did something wrong. I don't know how he would ever be convicted with that mindset of, I don't trust anybody that delivers the news.
What is that? What was that old like TikTok meme? Is like, don't you think that's suspicious that Trump doesn't email, doesn't text, doesn't use his own cell phone? Like the reason all of the fingers are pointed at Mark Meadows is because Don Jr. doesn't even text his dad. He texts Mark Meadows and says he has to get on Twitter now and say something. But I can pull up exactly what Don Jr. said. But like Sean Hannity's
heard that. Yeah, that's something new. I've never heard
so,
that. But I don't want to get too far off topic. I'm not.
I got you.
I don't want to have a bash Trump fest. I'm just trying to question how folks pro capital punishment and at the same time pro life. It just doesn't make sense to me. But I'll give you the last one. I do got to move it on. But you clearly agree it doesn't make any sense.
I don't think it makes any sense, and nor is it meant to. And I guess what I would say, and what I would want the people in the chat to realize is, I see like CNN, MSNBC, like I haven't had cable for 15 years. I don't know what you're talking about. Like this is not where we're getting our information. I understand that why you have to say that is, again, to discredit anything that might make you feel bad. And I'm sorry, but you can't get your sources from patriotnews.org. like I learned in school that you cannot use Wikipedia as a source, and I understand that you don't like CNN, but guess what? You don't have it. And I understand why you need to hate the media is because you cannot, it's your ego. You cannot break from it because then you would have to admit that you've been wrong for 5 years, 6 years, and Americans just simply don't have the chutzpah to do that. So that's all I'll say.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you coming through.
All right.
Enjoy your Halloween. Wonderful conversation. Okay. Looking in the comments, cigar guy, I think we talked before, said babies are innocent, criminals are not. I'm going to assume that you either do not live in the United States or you just do not really pay attention to what's going on with our criminal justice system at all. I would recommend the Innocence Project to you. If you suggest that criminals are not innocent, if you read it, I have a few books by the Innocence Project. I mean, I think they've actually gotten probably almost 100 people off of death row. This isn't talking about regular folks that were convicted of other basic felonies and released out of prison. But I believe just simply getting people off of death row, they've gotten dozens of people off of that. Most of them are African Americans, and we can talk about why that is the case as well. But the notion that criminals are not innocent is not true. Our justice system is not only flawed, it's incredibly flawed. There are lots of people that are found innocent. And do you realize how difficult it is to get found innocent in our criminal justice system? You got to be able to hire an attorney. You got to be able to file appeals. You got to get courts to be willing to listen to it, and you got to get past prosecutors who do not want to admit what they did is wrong. So if you have that many criminals having their convictions overturned, being released, being completely exonerated, it should let you know there's probably a hell of a lot more that are serving time because we make it so difficult for them to get exonerated in the first place. Okay, going back to the comments, Fast Pass. I know Fast Pass is not going to let me off easy, so I'm always happy to hear Fast Pass. But for some reason, his connection didn't go through. So we'll move it on. Let me see. Did he come through? Fast Pass? No, not at all.
Yeah, I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but my device is not showing you on here anyway. Okay, well, if you're here,
it's just a couple of chickens. My picture. Yeah, well, you're not gonna like this, because
I'm not here to like it. I'm here to listen. Talk to me.
well, the last guy on there, I mean, he's a victim of groupthink and stuff. I know he gets off on slamming conservatives, and I'm not calling the left fascist. I'm not going to call him that. He's a victim of the huge divide that they've got in.
I'll let you continue. I'm gonna let you continue, but let me ask you this question: those folks that went into the Capitol building on January 6th, do you think that they're victims of group thinking?
Yeah, I do. I do. I'll say some of them were, and I think some of them were guilty of a crime. I don't know what crime, but there is definitely not a legitimacy to this hearing, because people are talking about it like it's a court of law, and it's not. And I think you and I can agree, although I agree with capital punishment, and I am pro-life. But I don't think that people that went in there, were all innocent. But this hearing is not a court, and you and I agree that I don't think Trump's going to ever get charged with anything. I don't think so. I don't think they want that, because I mean, this is going to go on up until November, and then we're going to forget about it. We damn near forgot about it.
Let me stop you real quick. I agree with everything you said up to the point of they're going to forget about it. That I don't think is going to happen. I don't think history is going to forget about what happened on January 6th. I think what happened on January 6th, regardless if it convicts Trump or not, his legacy will be convicted. His legacy is forever tarnished. And if you just simply look at the phone calls he was receiving from Sean Hannity and Lori Ingram and all of those folks, they made it clear to him, your legacy, you're destroying your legacy in regards to this. So, go time. But
Washington's going to forget about it, especially if the conservatives get both houses. You're not going to see this, brought up. But this division that from the last speaker has happened. I mean, he wants to call people fascists, and then he wants to try to convince them to see things his side. That's not going to happen. But I did a term paper on capital punishment, and of course it's flawed, and of course there's going to be people that are wrongfully convicted, and that's going to happen.
So I support it.
But Dahmer, the guy that was a blight on society, he didn't get capital punishment. He didn't get it, but they killed him in prison. So he got capital punishment eventually just from being Dahmer and being in prison. So they convicted him to death when they put him in prison. Many prisoners, child sex offenders, people that go after, they go to prison. And that's basically a death sentence.
To me, Jeffrey Dahmer, using Jeffrey Dahmer as a clear example of why we should have a death penalty, sounds like abortion for rape and incest. It's an extreme example. The vast majority of folks on death row, the evidence is nowhere near that strong. I mean,
Well,
it's
who's it for?
usually
Who
testimony.
is it for?
It's usually exactly what they're trying to convict Trump off of. A bunch of, one side has a clear advantage, which you're talking about the prosecutors. Usually, the folks on death row are working with public defenders that are getting paid by the same people as the prosecutors. That system is incredibly flawed. Where
Of course, of course.
you got the entire weight of the state's justice system going against some poor dude who has a public defender. He's pretty much written off the minute he gets in
Well,
this.
a lot of times I know a guy is, you got a district attorney that might be 99-0 and he's never lost a case or whatever. But but who is capital punishment for? Is it for
Poor,
who's it for? Is it for society or is it for the victims?
it's for poor people that get convicted because wealthy people do not get capital punishment.
Well, I'm sure there's a history of well,
You
you
play
actually
some. You do realize that very few wealthy people get sent to death row, and I mean, there's plenty of wealthy people that kill folks. It's poor people that can't afford a decent counsel that end up with bad lawyering or something like that. That go because the Innocence Project in their book they talks about not folks who are on death row, but regular folks who are serving time. They said the number one thing that gets innocent people convicted is bad lawyering. Public defenders who just get them to plead out that they don't have any resources, they don't do their job, and that's
well
why most good folks are in there.
you can't count on evidence or being, I mean, because I don't know, I mean, everybody kind of remembers where they were when OJ was acquitted, right? Because I mean that was a divisive verdict. People were shouting in the streets, "Hallelujah!" And yeah, the white community was like, "What in the hell happened?" So that's an example of money, but it's also example of a nullification of a jury. I mean, that jury was not going to convict him. They weren't going to convict him no matter what. So I don't know. The
But all
evidence
that
would
should
have been
be,
much stronger. Maybe Fuhrer planted the glove, but maybe
yeah, but
come on, man.
everything you're talking about, whether it's nullification, whether the glove are, all of that can be summed up with one word: money. A public defender would have not gotten a jury nullified, would not have made the same selections. They certainly would have not been able to find an old tape of Mark Furman using the N-word. If Trump, I mean not Trump, if OJ did not have money, he would be deceased right now.
With a
So
40
it's
clip
money.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
well, look, that's true. A lot of money, yes, true. It'll get you either a better prison sentence or maybe not the capital punishment. But the recidivism that happens is, is coming from someone who's not been a victim of it. So 92%. I did the study, and I think it was done by Harvard. Whenever I did my term paper, and they did 92 capital offenders that were had a capital offense that ended up getting paroled and actually put out, and 50% of those people recidivated. They committed another crime. 15% of those committed another murder. So you're right. It is among poor, but and unfortunately, this is the world. The crime, a lot of it is also among poor. That's this.
yeah, but
That.
I would
Come
say
on, that's true, man. It's in poor neighborhoods, and you know it, and I know it. There's more
so why
crime.
so why so
Economic conditions create crime,
right.
and I'm not saying that's good, bad. It's just reality.
So
Uh, you know,
if you're in favor of protecting innocent lives, how could you support the death penalty from a system that you admit is incredibly flawed?
well, because capital punishment is definitely a zero recidivism rate.
You're killing
Nobody
innocent people, though.
recommits.
You're killing innocent
Well,
people.
well, so is the mother when she takes somebody. Now look, and it happens. It happens later term than people think it is, and she wants to say that she has the power to determine
But
who
you
lives.
made it. But you
I
made
think
it.
there needs
Wait
to
a
be
minute.
the they
You
can
made it
resist. They
clear.
cannot have. They cannot get pregnant. But that seems such a far fetched thing nowadays. Like you expect me not to have sex. You
Okay,
expect me to have protected sex.
I
You
don't
you
get
can
your
put
point.
5 years of birth control in some in a in a in your body, now where it protects you for 5 years. And yes, that's the exception. Someone gets pregnant. That might be the exception, but
Wait a minute. Here's where I don't get your point. You admit that women kill innocent lives and things like that, and but you're also admitting that the system does it. For some reason, you don't support the mother doing it, but you're okay with the system doing it. You will
no,
continue
because
to support
well,
the
because the system doesn't, I think, knowingly convict an innocent life. Knowingly, that's the difference. I don't think they knowingly. I don't.
Yeah,
That's the rarity, and that if it happens, it's a rare thing because I don't believe that the system on average in actually does that on purpose. Um, and I had my
yeah.
best friend murdered, man. He was
That
shot,
doesn't.
killed by
Yeah,
a
that
guy that was
doesn't make
supposed to be
sense.
in jail, and he was
Yeah.
let out of jail, and he came out and he killed my best friend. I was best man in his wedding. So, man, I don't. Recidivism is definitely zero with a
Why
capital
would
crime,
you?
and if
Okay,
it's
wait a
if
minute.
it can be changed, it
Hold
can
on.
be
Okay,
refined.
let me get in here. Okay, do you believe what's going on with Trump? Do you believe that hearing is being held properly?
No, no,
So
because it's one sided.
if you don't believe the system involved in that hearing is not being held properly, why would you think the system does not convict poor people? They're going after the president of the United States, and you don't trust that. But you're going
Because
to
they
tell me
have
that
no political reason or
wait
economic
a
or
minute.
financial reason to convict a poor person to the death penalty. There is no financial reason, there's no political reason to convict a poor person to the death penalty. That's why.
Then why did they used to hang people if there's no benefit to it?
Well, that you used the right words. Used to. I used to. You know, they
But
used to. I
but
guarantee that
why
was a
would they
deterrent.
do it?
That was a hell of a deterrent.
It doesn't matter if it's in a past or not. Why did they do it if it's no benefit to it?
Deterrence.
The what?
Deterrence. An
And you don't think
example, an
it's
example
so
that I mean, I knew a man, and he's a black man, great man. He used to tell his mama would tell him he couldn't go to the courthouse on is it Saturday or Sunday, whatever day they had hangings, because and of course, what would he do? I mean, he'd run down to the courthouse. So that little boy at a young age, he would see capital crimes where a guy, shot 5 cops. He was obviously the guy killed people, shot several innocent people, and they hanged him. Okay, and that's what happened. But that hasn't happened in our lifetime.
yeah,
I mean, that hasn't happened in our
I gotta
lifetime.
say, yeah, I gotta say, I terribly disagree with you for a number of reasons. First of all, prosecutors get bonuses and they actually get promotions based on conviction. So if you can get an easy conviction, doesn't matter if the person is innocent or not. And like I've told folks in the audience, I would strongly suggest you read the Innocence Project because they're the ones that get innocent folks out, and they will tell you we've went to prosecutors and district attorneys with clear cut evidence that a person has been wrongfully placed in jail, and they still fight back tooth and nail. So the idea that they don't do this intentionally, I mean, you realize the
Nah,
police.
well, that
Oh, wait
I
a minute.
understand.
Let me finish. We realize the police arrest people wrongfully intentionally. You realize that they're going after Trump, in your opinion, wrongfully intentionally. Why would you skip over prosecutors when every other step of the way you can see where government is doing things wrong intentionally?
Well, this because I think it will correct itself. If somebody does that, I think the system will correct itself eventually. Now, it's not a perfect system, and as long as us people are running it, it's going to be that way. But recidivism for the victim, okay, for the victim, somebody's let out of jail because or they were paroled and they recommit a crime, and you were the victim, you would think different. If it was your wife, or if it was your kid, or if it was your mom or your dad. So people base their thoughts and their by their experiences, and that's from your experience. Now, that's our life experience. I've experienced differently.
Well,
Um,
let me respond to your statement about if you experience, victimization. I will suggest that just like you said, if I had a family member or myself was victimized, I might think differently. But I will submit to you that if your dad was sitting in prison and you knew he didn't do it, you would probably think differently too.
Yeah, well, that's probably that. You and I know that happens. There's no question that
You,
happens.
and it
But it's
doesn't.
I don't think it's I think it's the exception. I don't think it's the rule. And it's on a capital crime that's obvious. I believe capital punishment is the one thing. Why? Because if they know they've done it, every time they come up for a hearing, every time the family has to relive this. And now we've got the most liberal DAs that we're rethinking the justice system, where we're taking the whipsaw a little too far to the other side, because these people that are getting let out aren't innocent. These people that are committing these crimes and they've been paroled because of these new policies weren't innocent to begin with. They were violent offenders and they are being let out. I don't care what color they are; it has nothing to do with it. I'm just saying that it is an economic thing. I think if we can change the way that this thing about God, what we live with today, if we can change some of the economics, that's the problem,
Okay,
and I think
here's
that would happen.
see, you're bringing. I gotta move it on, but before I part ways, which I'll give you the last word, but I will say this: you're admitting that economics plays a huge part in our criminal justice system, and as long as you're dealing with a bunch of folks that are serving time that had no money and they went up against a prosecutor with endless resources, you'd have to admit that the system is incredibly unfair. So the notion that all of those folks that the prosecutor beat with all of those excessive weapons are actually innocent, it's probably not true. I mean, there's probably a whole bunch of people who took a plea deal because their what do you call it? Their public defender told them this is your best option. There's a whole lot of people that are serving time that should not be doing a day. And we've been convinced that everybody in jail is a criminal. But I give you the last word. I do got to move it on.
Okay, this won't take long, and I'm going to put this down here, and I'm going to post it in the comments, and anybody that wants to look it up can look it up. But where I live, not far, there's a video of a guy arrested by police. He's an ex-youth pastor. He's white. He is held down by 3-4 cops. I'll put the words into Q, and you can look it up if you really want to look it up.
Okay.
And these guys, they had their knees on his neck. They had everything. I'm talking about how we've all been influenced by what we're hearing and reading through the years and years of media.
Okay.
This guy's the knees on his neck, exactly like George Floyd. The guy ended up dying, handsome, and he's dead. And nobody has heard about this. This does not get the attention.
Let me
It's
ask
on
you
video. The guy took it. It does not get the media attention. And this,
why, if that is true, why aren't white people protesting? I'm seeing Blue Lives Matter and we back. Why aren't they protesting? Be on TV to protest.
Well, because he didn't cry out for his mama, for one thing. Okay, I'm not being mad. Don't get mad at me, but I'm saying that was an emotional video. But I tell you what, the family's looking out. One of them said they got my brother out there. I think he'd have killed him. And it's eerily the same thing. The guy's knees on his neck. He's crawling out. He's screaming out. But I don't know why they don't. Because maybe he didn't. Maybe he resisted.
I let me make it clear. Let me say this. I seen plenty of, I guess I'd say, white people protesting the mask mandates. They surrounded the Capitol building in Michigan. I've seen white folks beating the hell out of people in stores because they asked them to put on a mask, or folks fighting against the vaccine. But you're telling me they put a knee on a white guy, the cops did, and held him down until he died. And I hear more people complaining over a damn mask than I do over a death like that. That is an internal problem. I would suggest that they need to protest. That's the only way African Americans are getting things done, because the Native Americans are not protesting and they remain marginalized.
Well, this is not the Martin Luther King recipe for change, right? What's going on now on TikTok, on Twitter, is dangerous. I mean, it really is, because the hate that's out there right now, and the Bible said ethnos is going to rise up against ethnos, which is basically race against race, and there's really some militants out there that we got. I mean, I hope we can call this in before, I don't know what's going to happen. Somebody's going to do something really bad.
Why would there be race rising up against race?
Economics is one reason. I'm sure it's financial. It's a lot of truthfully, I hate to say it, multi-generational
In
government.
other
I'm the
words,
government, and I'm here to help you. And that the
yeah.
government.
In other words, for the same reasons it did in the past.
I don't know. Did you ever get your butt whooped in
You just
school?
stated all of them.
Did you get a
You just
whooped in
stated
school?
all of the same reasons.
Yeah, economics is a reason. I think that is one. But did you ever get your butt whipped in school by a teacher?
Yeah,
You ever get a spanking? So did I.
yeah.
So did I. Will that happen today? Has it happened in the last 10, 20 years? So
No, but I
no.
will tell
So
you.
that
I
little.
will tell you something. During the time when I was getting my banks spanked in school back in the 70s and 80s, America was more racist then than it is now. It's actually a better place to live now than it was in the 70s and 80s. So I don't know where to go with that.
I don't know, man. I don't know if I can completely agree with that part, but anyway, I remember every whipping I got. I don't remember a timeout, or I don't remember a after school detention, not one. But I remember R.L. Dalton laying it to my ass one day. All right, I'll let the next guy in, but I'm going to post this, and I want some people look it up. Just look it up. Okay, that's all I'll say. All right.
All right. Okay, let me go back to the Mark Gordon. And before I go to Mark Gordon in the box, you are next, Mark. I'm just. If somebody said no, it wasn't. You're telling me no, America. You're telling me America is more divided today than it was in the 1970s. No, the Civil Rights Act only passed in 1964. You know how much division we experienced when the Civil Rights Act was passed? When did Martin Luther King get assassinated? 60, was it 63 or 68 or whatever? You're telling me within 3-4 years the country had came together, was yelling kumbaya? No, there's no way in the world America was more united in the 70s and 80s than it is now. The difference is it seems more divided now because minorities that are complaining are actually getting a listening ear. When they were complaining back in the 70s and 80s, they just got dismissed. There was no video cameras or any of that shit. If Steve Jobs, the late Steve Jobs, had created the iPhone in 1970, the division would have started back then. Because I blame Steve Jobs. Everyone always goes, well, why is there so much issues with police and things like that, and it never used to be? Well, Steve Jobs put a video studio in the hands of every American. So now people don't have to just walk to the media or walk into the police station and say, this guy beat me up. Now they can say, here, look at it. And it's harder to dismiss. It's more difficult to dismiss when somebody can present footage of it. Back in the 70s and 80s, there was no footage available. And you're not going to take the word of some criminal or some ne'er-do-well or some poor person over a sworn-in officer. But now with the video, it's a different story. Okay, I'm going to go back to the box and move it on. This is going to be Mark Gordon. Let me see. First black guest of the White House, 1972, Sammy Davis Jr. Yeah. Mark Gordon, I think, is loading. Let's see if it comes up. Archie Bunker was an accurate portrayal of many Americans in the 70s. And there's a lot of folks that want Archie Bunker back on television. Mark Gordon, can you hear me?
Yes. How are you this morning? This afternoon?
Have you been listening to the program?
I have. I've been listening for about an hour now.
Very, very well. I appreciate that. What is your take on what you've heard so far?
Okay, so I'm going to be your huckleberry, and I'll explain why. I am pro-life. I'm ex-law enforcement. I'm actually disabled with PTSD. I was shot on duty a couple of times. So just to get right to it, you were saying that about how can you be pro-life but also be pro-death penalty. I am pro-life and pro-death penalty, and my standpoint on it, and I'm not trying to convince you of mine. I respect your opinions and your feelings on it. From my standpoint, let me also include I worked in the prison system while I was in law enforcement for a few years too, and there are a lot more innocent people in prison than anybody could possibly imagine. And you're absolutely right. It's directly related to poverty.
So why would you support the state taking lives if you admit the state is incarcerating a lot of innocent people?
They have. But my stance with the being able to be pro-life with abortion, but also pro-death penalty, is that baby has not been judged by a jury of its peers. Now, when a man commits a crime and goes in front of the court and the death penalty is put on the table, that man had to have committed a certain crime for the death penalty to even be introduced to it. And it has to be a capital murder, for example.
So you don't think that anyone has been convicted of and given death that is 100% innocent and did not murder anyone at all?
No, there are absolutely men that have been executed and will continue to be innocent men executed at the hands of the state that were innocent of their crimes. Absolutely.
So why are you supporting this system then?
Because one aspect of it, and this is going to be long-winded, give me just a second to explain it. One aspect of it is that when you commit a crime that constitutes the death penalty or puts it on the table, you have a jury trial. If you're found guilty, you have the right to an appeals process where you have 3 appeals, where you're also, and there are people that still go through that process and are wrongfully put to death. I agree with you. However, that baby has no appeal process whatsoever and has no jury of its peers whatsoever. That baby, while it's in utero, the father of that child doesn't even get to go and say, hey, I don't want this lady to abort my child. I would, if she doesn't want to keep the baby, I would like to keep the baby. That father has no right to do that. That baby was convicted
I get your point
and
on
executed.
Yeah, I get your point on the abortion side, but where you lose me is on the criminal justice side. Even with appeals and things like that, you'd have to realize the average person that is charged with murder and facing a death sentence has no money, so they're dealing with a public defender, and the public defender is going to be the person that implements all of their appeal. So you'd have to argue that they never got a fair trial to begin with. It's because they were going up against a juggernaut. And they lost. That's highly predictable, which is why wealthy people generally do not get the death penalty, because they have money so that they're not going up against a juggernaut. It's on equal footing. So money makes it clear that when things are on equal footing, people get convicted. So how could you support the system that is, okay, the person being put to death clearly was dealing with an unequal opponent, but you're okay with the taking of that life?
There are always going to, there's never going to be a perfect scenario where everybody innocent will get by and everybody guilty will get by. Yes, there will be some that are caught up in the system that are executed that were innocent, and it's not fair. But I also believe, as a Christian, I believe that God will reward them in the afterlife. God will have their back, and God will bring them the justice that they deserve to have while they
Well,
were in this life.
then why couldn't God reward a terminated fetus in the afterlife as well?
Well, he does. All terminated fetuses go to be with Jesus. I mean, the Bible says that all children belong to him. A child or fetus has not reached the age of accountability yet. So all aborted fetuses go to Jesus.
Okay. It just to me it seems contradictory, because you started out the broadcast, or you started out your call by saying a lot more innocent people are incarcerated than anyone realizes. And then you're later saying, well, because there's some flaws in some people, why not support life? That way, a person always has a chance of proving their innocence, as opposed to the death penalty. It's not going to be any different in regards to the safety of society if you give them life as opposed to death. And now this way, if they are innocent, maybe they serve 15, 20 years, but they get out, which is why a lot of liberal states, when you're put on death row, you are on death row a lot longer, because that's sometimes when stuff comes out. Maybe your witness is trying to make your witness is maybe getting older and they're about to face their maker, and they want to come clean and tell that, well, I lied and got that guy convicted. But when you get states like Texas and Florida wanting to execute the person almost the next damn day, you increase the chances of killing the wrong person. I don't see how you can support the system while admitting it's heavily flawed.
Well, we do need prison reform. I do agree with that 110%. And I can give you an example. I met a man that was he actually started off with capital, and he pled out to a manslaughter 2 charge to keep from being executed. His wife and him were both intoxicated, and she pointed a gun at him first. And he told her, if you don't put that gun down, I'm going to have to get mine. And she did not put it down. He drew his pistol. He told her, if you don't drop the pistol, I'm going to have to use mine. She didn't drop the pistol, and he ended up shooting her. That was 100% self-defense. But he was poor, and we're in Mississippi, and in Mississippi, the Jim Crow laws are still alive and well. And this poor guy he was facing the death penalty. He took a plea to where he would do 25 to life with no parole instead of the death penalty for a crime that he should have never been incarcerated for in the first place.
And by supporting the death penalty, you're essentially putting a stamp of approval on taking some innocent lives. I understand the argument against abortion, taking innocent lives, but you're making the same point in regards to the capital punishment side of the aisle, while admitting I do support capital punishment still.
Yeah, I do, and that's why I was saying I'm not trying to sway you or make you see it my way or anything like that. I'm just simply stating that I do acknowledge that there will be innocent people that get caught up and executed, or receive capital punishment for crimes that they didn't commit. But
And that's fair enough.
there's an overwhelming number that really bothers me right now, and I don't know how familiar you are with the demographics in the South right now, but Jackson, Mississippi, is a battle zone right now. And in the last 2 months, we have had over 25 young black children, ages 6 and under, that have been killed by drive-by shootings and stray bullets and straight intentional shootings by teenagers right now. And it's an epidemic that's happening in our city right now, and it's horrible. And if you look into the statistics of it, I'm wondering, I'm also a person of color, and I'm wondering where Black Lives Matters is. And you know where they are right now? They're standing outside the abortion clinic right now protesting this Roe v. Wade turnover, while we have our youth are getting slaughtered in the streets, but nobody's protesting that.
Well, it doesn't have to be Black Lives Matter. Some of the folks who are criticizing Black Lives Matter, if you truly care about, folks losing their lives, I mean, what's stopping a bunch of white people from protesting it? It doesn't have to be Black Lives Matter. It could be someone else protesting.
Oh, there are in North Jackson right now. There are more white people protesting the violence and protesting the abortions than there are African Americans. But the other thing is, did you know that 2021 was the first year in history that it's been recorded that more African American babies were aborted than born in this country?
I don't think I believe that.
It's
I need
there.
to see. I need to see a link or whatever you call it, a site. I need to see some evidence of that. I don't believe that.
It's there, and while we're also tearing down Civil War uh, general statues, which I agree with. I believe we should tear them down and replace them with something that represents the entirety of the population, not just a select few. But while we're tearing those monuments down, we're building monuments for people like Margaret Sanger. Margaret Sanger and Lyndon Johnson were the worst thing to happen to African Americans since slavery. Margaret
I,
Sanger
I,
is,
totally,
is
I totally disagree with Lyndon Johnson being the worst thing to happen against. Lyndon Johnson is responsible for the Civil Rights Act movement. So I got to disagree with that.
Lyndon Johnson is on public recording. You can find the recording of him saying this just about anywhere. He uses the N word and he says, "I will have those blank voting for us for the next 200 years and eating out of the palm of our hands."
So if we didn't have Lyndon Johnson and he didn't pass the Civil Rights Act, you're telling me we'd be better off?
I believe somebody else would have came along that would have done something a little more fair, because with Lyndon Johnson and Margaret Sanger came Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood was originally established to commit genocide. It wasn't established as a birth control use for the general population. It was a way for them to commit genocide in African American communities.
No, I've heard different stories on Margaret Sanger, and I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I totally disagree with what you're saying on Lyndon Johnson. I mean, you can say whatever you want about African Americans if you're going to pass the Civil Rights Act. Because, by the way, Abraham Lincoln is also quoted as saying, if he could end the Civil War without freeing a single slave, he would do it. if he could end the Civil War by freeing slaves, he would do it. So Abraham Lincoln made it clear he wasn't freeing African Americans to benefit African Americans. He was doing it to keep the country together. But at the end of the day, he did it. So I give him credit for doing it. So whatever you're saying about Lyndon Johnson, at the end of the day, he passed that act that literally all of my descendants have benefited from. So I'm going to go with Lyndon Johnson based solely on what he did with a pen. As a lot of Trump supporters say, don't pay attention to what he says, pay attention to what he does. I'll let you go.
How exactly did they benefit from Lyndon Johnson's policies, though? I mean, I know what it looks like on paper, but how did they physically benefit from it?
How did we benefit from the Civil Rights Act?
Yes.
You name it. Schools, the removing places you couldn't eat, redlining. I mean, there's a host of all of the racial discrimination suits that we file. When we file and win those suits using the Civil Rights Act as a reason they can't do it. Those lawsuits would not have won without the Civil Rights Act. So that is the legal precedent that allows us to file those discrimination suits against police and realtors and companies. All of that's coming from the Civil Rights Act.
So you don't think that someone else would have came along and passed that, or that society itself would have passed that on its own?
Well, I could say that I could say that Joe Biden, whatever he did for blacks, somebody else might do it 10 years from now. I want it done today. So if Lyndon Johnson did it in 1964, I don't want to wait to the next president. The sooner you do it, the more African Americans will benefit from it. I don't want somebody to come along later and do it if you can do it now.
But Lyndon Johnson's motives was to do this in order to create a voter base for him, so that he could pass certain agendas and policy agendas, like creating a welfare state, which all but guaranteed him a voting base.
And it should. If you free African Americans by giving them the Civil Rights Act that nobody else has done before you, you should get a voter base. You deserve it.
Okay, so my analogy for that is there's a lot of people out there that they give money to the homeless, but they want to make sure that there's a camera pointed at them while they do it. So, what's more sincere? Someone who does that because they believe it's right and there's no cameras around, or somebody who does it because there's a camera around and they want to be famous for it?
If I'm homeless, and that's a good question. If I'm homeless, I don't care. If I have nothing to eat and you give me money because you have ulterior motives and you want to appear on TV, at the end of the day, I'm happy for the damn salary. I don't care what your motives are. I was starving before you got here. I'll give you the last word. I got to move on.
No, I understand, and you and I enjoyed this conversation. I always love it when I can be on the opposite side of the spectrum from somebody and have a civil conversation. And I wish you the best, and I hope you have a blessed day.
Thank you. Absolutely a pleasure. Catch you on the next. You have a good holiday.
You too, sir.
Okay, yeah, and I mean, obviously we're on different ends of the spectrum, but I'll make it clear to you guys, it's not about agreeing or disagreeing. I like to hear folks' points. I like to hear, where other people are coming from, and sometimes I get enlightened by that. Me and the previous caller didn't agree. That's fine. Okay, moving on. Somebody said, thank God. Okay, the Book of Time. Now, this is certainly a new caller. I don't think we've ever spoken before, but good afternoon. What it says, the Book of Life. How are you?
The Book of Time. Thank you for bringing me into your room. I was just listening to the other person, and he kind of said something that kind of just struck a wee nerve. We don't have the right, none of us, not one person in the world, has the right to condemn another person if you're a religious person and you believe in God. Because God
so you're not in favor of the death penalty, I assume, correct?
I'm not in favour of taking any life whatsoever, because I'm alive and it's beautiful to be alive. I know that some people think there's this crazy cult idea that we follow leaders that have made us into the situation we're in. Okay? And that's the situation they have made for us. I don't agree with that situation. But just going back to what the guy said was, when he said it just struck a chord with me, was if you're a believer in God and you believe in God, God did say through his son Jesus that in the last day, when everybody goes to heaven or wherever it is we're going, he will judge. So no one has the right to judge and take a life. No one. If you believe in God. That's
I
all I was
agree.
going to say.
Yeah, I agree with you on that point. That's kind of where I'm leading. But I gotta ask, this is kind of off the topic, but your accent is very pronounced. Are you Irish, Scottish? Where am I? Where are you from?
I'm from the best country in the world, my man, where you got bagpipes and haggis.
What country is that?
Well, who plays the bagpipes and who eats haggis?
I have
I'll
no
give you a
clue.
hint. Okay. Let me give you a hint. I belong to Glasgow, dear old Glasgow town. There's nothing the matter with Glasgow, 'cause it's go round and round. Couple of whiskies in the morning, that'll make me fine.
Okay, you're
But
obviously
if I was to come from Scottish, but if I was to come from Jamaica, I would be singing, we're jamming all the way down here. I love Bob Marley. But anyway, apart from that, all I was saying was, if you believe in God for a night, then he's the only person who can judge. Because someone asked me to judge Hitler, and I kind of came back from and I went to him, how can I judge Hitler? I've never met Hitler. I don't know Hitler. I have no idea. Hitler's just a guy in the past that done whatever he done. I might condemn what he done, but I cannot judge him because that's what God's going to do. So if
Let
you're
me
a
ask.
religious person and asking
Okay,
me,
let me ask you
then
this:
I'm
Are you
telling you,
okay? Well, let me ask you this: Are you pro-choice or pro-life?
now, I don't understand the pro-choice and the pro-life. I believe that every single human being in the world came from a seed, became a person, became a human. Therefore, they do not have the right to take away that from someone else. I believe that if someone has been, I'm going to use the word raped or something, I believe that they were raped by an unhuman person and an animal. Therefore, they have the right to do what they think's better for themselves.
Okay, all right. So you have a rape and basically you agree with the rape and incest provision is what they're talking about. In your country, is it legal to get an abortion in Ireland?
As in Scotland, I don't know about Ireland. In
Scotland,
Scotland,
yeah,
you can.
Scotland. My fault, Scotland. Yeah.
I'm in London. It's legal in London as well.
Okay. So is it legal throughout the UK in the United Kingdom? Is it legal throughout the entire United Kingdom?
I don't think it's legal in Ireland, but it is everywhere else
Okay.
because people used to come from Ireland to London to do it.
Okay, I
Does that
got
make
one.
sense?
Since I got you on here, I got one other question that's slightly off topic. We often talk about Trump, former president of Trump. Over in your country, what do they think of the former president Trump?
They think he's a they think he's a rip-off merchant.
He's a
I don't know if you
what?
know what a rip-off merchant is. A rip-off merchant. He's lying
Oh,
in his pockets using the people.
oh wow, a ripoff merchant. Okay, I get
That's
what you.
what they think.
What about President
Myself
Biden?
personally,
What about President
right?
Biden?
Myself, right? Myself personally on Trump, I think he's doing a good job. I would have kept him in because I think he was for the people. But I
Okay.
think he had certain things that like the COVID, for instance. I think he was trying to cash in somewhere there. I don't know where his brain went there. I think his brain must have left his head and went in his toes because that thing came over and wiped all sorts of people out. But Biden, my problem with Biden is he seems to forget everything. So he seems not to be a strong person. He's a
Okay.
nice person, but not strong. You know, I think you should have our Prime Minister, Pinocchio.
Wait, say
That's
that.
what we call our Prime Minister.
Okay.
You know, Pinocchio, the liar, Boris Johnson with the big nose. We call him Pinocchio.
You
We
talking
don't
about
call him Boris Johnson.
you
We're
talking
talking
about
about the
Oh, you're talking about all of them. Okay, all right. Well, I appreciate your honest assessment. You give an honest assessment on both of those guys. But listen, I do got to move it on. I got another person in the box. I appreciate you coming through. That was a good conversation. Have never talked to anybody from the UK. I don't believe so. You're the first. You still there? Okay. Well, let me move it on. I guess I don't know what the hell this thing is frozen up. All right, let me try this now. Is anyone in here? What does it say? Is anyone in here username Sherrod? Scottish people are the best. You know, I enjoyed his accent as well. I really enjoyed that accent. Looking at the comments, Biden is on prescription drugs. Shit, how many Americans that are damn near 80 years old that are not on prescription drugs? Shit, I'm 50 and I'm on prescription drugs. Shit. Yeah, I bet Biden is on prescription drugs. Not to mention, I mean, he has what probably amounts to is one of the most stressful jobs in the world. Yeah, I bet he is on prescription drugs. You think Trump is not on some kind of prescription? Let me see here. Trump was far from the most honest, but he definitely was the most unfiltered. I can agree with that. Woman is nature. She creates the nature and can take it away. God given as nature in woman in choice. That's right. That's kind of deep. I believe he was a good guy for the job. With a few flaws. Okay. All right. Let me look in the box here. I'm gonna wrap it up shortly, but it's been a good conversation. I just wanted to. The whole topic was in relation to how you could be pro-choice and in favor of capital punishment, because in both cases, whether it's the mother to be or the state government, they are taking a life under the guise that that life is a nuisance or a burden. The mom may think that she cannot afford the child that's inside of her, and it's going to be a burden on me. I can't afford it. Whereas the state also believes that the condemned is a burden on society. And make no mistake about it, a lot of my MAGA folks who do not want folks on serving life sentences. You want them executed because they are a burden on taxpayers. You kind of fit the exact narrative of the mom having an abortion. You want to execute someone that may have normally gotten a life sentence because they are a financial burden on the system. That's exactly what mothers to be are using as their primary reason to have an abortion, is because the child will be a financial burden. Now, I understand you tend to believe, well, the condemned is guilty and the unborn is innocent. Well, as we've discussed over and over again, there's a lot of condemned that are not guilty. There's a lot of folks in this country that get condemned that are innocent. So I understand that some folks, well, how can you compare a criminal to an unborn? There's a lot of parallels here. That's all I'm saying. There are a lot of parallels here. Not because they are a burden, it's because they want to be school shooters. How many school shooters have been executed? That's not even in the conversation. I'm talking about folks who actually have had their lives taken by execution. I don't think there has ever been a single school shooter that has been executed. Most of them take their own damn life. I am pro-choice and for death penalty. I'm just going to say that, and I get that it's not about changing hearts and minds. It's about us having a dialogue here. I would just state that you'd have to realize, regardless if you care or not, that it is a hypocrisy. If you're willing to ignore all of the flaws of our justice system and still pursue capital punishment while admitting that it is flawed, then you'd have to admit that, yeah, it might not be as high of a percentage with moms having abortions, because when it comes to a mom having an abortion, 100% of the pregnancies terminated are innocent. But you would admit that whatever percentage you would agree with, that there are some innocent terminations within our prison system. They are terminating innocent people, which is just a matter of how many we may argue on. But there is no one out there that believes that every single person that gets terminated is guilty. Everybody agrees that they're probably killing some innocent people. So if you are for protecting the sanctity of innocent life, How can you support that system? Other than I'm just willing to tolerate a few people dying that don't deserve it. Okay, going to the box here. I guess it just dropped out. Deception occurs from religion. False prophets have motive in using God for money. That is 100% true. Sweet pants, you said, what is that? Sweet pants and sarcasm. You said you'll tell me. Let me know. Let me know. The box is open. You can come in here and let me know. Convicted innocent lives are destroyed. That is true too. Not only, if you convict an innocent person, not only are you destroying that innocent person, you might be destroying a wife, a son, a daughter, the convicted mom. I mean, because when you go to prison for a lengthy period of time, got a helicopter flying overhead. Anytime someone is condemned to prison for a lengthy period of time, it is essentially like dying without a funeral. Everything about that person is literally wiped out of your life instantly. Now, in some cases, you can go to prison and see them occasionally, damn near like going to a grave site. But for the most part, that person is wiped out of your life completely. Certainly if you're a young child and that's your mom or your dad, if they go to prison, it's essentially like they just died because all of the raising you had with them, the ball games, the fishing trips, them picking you up from school, all of that disappears in an instant. So it is essentially like that person just died. And oftentimes they're either gone forever or they don't come back until you're well into adulthood. So I just don't understand not being able to see the hypocrisy supporting capital punishment as opposed to being against abortion. Anyway, folks, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. It's an interesting conversation. I appreciate you guys hanging around. Catch you guys later. It's your boy Tim, the Handsome Liberal. I'm out of here.